If I can figure out what the issue is within a matter of 15, 20 seconds at the most, I know pretty much that that's going to be a pretty good report.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the WCAT podcast, Spilling the Tea on Digital Accessibility. Hey, guys, I'm just so excited to have someone here with us from the AO team. His name is Bruce Blaser, which is probably one of the most awesome names, last names I've ever heard in my entire life. He's been with us. I think, Bruce, you got hired on about the same time I did, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely before my
2023.
time.
Yeah. So he's an OG of AO. And Bruce is a test manager here at AO. He also wears many, many other hats. He's helped to teach some of our CAT students in the CAT program. He helps to grade their finals. So, if you're a prospective CAT student, we'll put his Venmo in the chat so that you can have it. So if you want to drop him and me, a couple bucks to add a couple of positive points. So that was a joke. That was a joke. Um, but yeah, Bruce, you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who Bruce Blazer is?
Howdy, everyone. As B said, my name is Bruce Blazer. I'm up here in the Great Pacific Northwest, Portland, Oregon, to be exact. Having a last name of Blazer is pretty good here in Portland if you follow the NBA, but it's spelt with an S instead of a Z. Um, I have a degree in computer science from way back when, and I have been a web developer for just over 30 years now. Um, and the last about 8, 9 years, I have started to specialize in accessibility. And that's where I've now focused most of my attention. I don't do a lot of so-called web development anymore. I don't build software or websites or things like that. Most of my attention now is devoted to auditing those sites and applications and helping our clients fix their issues. My
Yeah.
hobbies are, well, I foster kittens for a local cat
Mhm.
shelter in our area. In fact, right now I have a litter of 4 kittens they're going to be a week old tomorrow. Fortunately, I
Wow.
have the mom cat with them, so she's doing most of the work, and I just get to sit around and enjoy them. And then I also like the flower garden. My whole front yard is one huge flower garden, and I probably spend at least an hour or two a day out there. Now that the days are longer in the evenings, I can
Mhm.
get out there in the evenings and do my weeding and gardening and things like that.
Awesome. Do you
Let's
grow any
see, I
catnip?
worked, what's that?
Do you grow any catnip?
That's a good question, and you think I would, but no, I do not.
Gotcha.
The last thing I need, the last thing
Is
I
more
have
cat.
2 cats of my own, and the last thing I
Hmm.
need is for them chewing on catnip and then, throwing it back up in hairballs. So no, I don't give them any catnip. My 2 cats are very long-haired, and so I already have enough of that problem to deal with without giving them extra incentive for coughing up cat balls, cat hairballs. Let's see. Yeah, I got my computer science degree back in the mid 90s, and then I actually worked for the state of Oregon for about a decade, and that was really fun. That was back before everybody had fast internet connections. Most people got their internet over dial-up,
Oh
with
goodness.
really slow modems. You youngins might not know what I'm talking about here, but
Oh,
and
we
I
remember.
We
I
remember.
worked for a department. We literally, um, we literally went out and put in dial-up access throughout the state of Oregon, particularly the rural areas that weren't being served, didn't have dial-up access. So we went all
Oh
over the state
wow.
of Oregon, putting in uh, dial-up access so people could, and then we ran our own ISP and all the other web services that an ISP would provide and things like that. And then after I left the state of Oregon, I worked for a publishing company, a well-known publishing company. If you've if you've gone to college, you have, I assure you, you have bought books published by this company, and I help them transition from hard copy books to digital books and digital classrooms. They were in the process of building digital classrooms for people, so they could sell those, and go out and sell those digital classrooms to various schools and universities. And that's where I got into accessibility. When I first started there, I didn't know anything about accessibility. I might have known that blind people use screen readers to listen to a web page or something like that, but that's about my extent of it. I knew nothing else than that. And working at that job, over the years, as they got more serious about accessibility, I integrated myself more in the accessibility team, and I learned as much as I could. And everything I created, I tried to make it as accessible as possible. And I loved it. I felt like I was learning something new, which is always great. But also, I felt like I was helping people a lot more than just creating something that we could sell to people. I was actually making sure that the things we were selling to people could actually be used by everyone. And that was, that got me hooked. And so I've been specializing in accessibility ever since.
That's awesome. I remember
Awesome.
back in college, those early learning management systems like Blackboard and e-learning were very inaccessible at first.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry. I got caught up on dial-up, and I just remember when I needed to use the phone, I had to go and unplug the cord and then make a phone call because remember back then you couldn't use the phone and the internet at the
Hmm.
same time. So that's my
Yep.
The
I
exposure to
remember
first,
it.
doing a project back, like a book report back in the fourth grade, and my mom's best friend kept calling and booting me off the internet like every 30 minutes. And then it would take another like 5, 10 minutes to just dial it up to get back online.
Hmm.
yep. The first house we bought up here in Portland, one of the first things we did was put in a second phone line.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, Bruce, can you just kind of tell us, brief little overview of what you do at Accessibility Officer?
And how your
so
role
my
has
main
changed.
role Yeah, my main role is a testing manager, as you said, and
Mhm.
that primarily involves I go in after our testers have logged issues, and I go in and I review those issues, and I make sure that they are ready in a good enough state to give pass on to our clients, so that then our clients can take those issues and do whatever they need to do to get them remediated. That is my primary job as I see it. I make sure um, that what we give our clients is good enough that they can act on that information. Now, some of the
So,
secondary stuff that I do involves training or
mhm.
our testers. A lot of it is giving them feedback about their write-ups, either if they've done something good or if they could do something better, constantly giving them feedback so that they can improve their skills. That's a very big part of the job as well. I also interact directly with developers. We have some clients that have their own development teams, and I am in meetings with them. We're doing like live working sessions. They're showing me their code, they're showing me what they're trying to do. They say, "Hey, we read your recommendation, but we can't figure it out. Please show us how to do this." And I'm literally walking them through the process of showing them how to code something properly to make it more accessible. So there's that aspect of it too. And then, as you mentioned, B, I'm also helping out with the CAT program as well. Um, we're constantly updating our documentation. Um, where I help make uh, sites that we use to test our users on, our CAT students on, things like that. And any little things that you and Ellie might need that involve developing you know code development, things like that. You and we also powwow every once in a while to talk about how to teach things, what our current standards are, so that way we are sure that when a CAT student graduates from the program and we bring them on as an apprentice, that transition is fairly straightforward and easy because we've already told them everything that we want them to do as soon as they start actually working for us.
Mhm. So Bruce is kind of the he acts as a quality tech, pretty much, that to make sure that issues that our testers log are actionable, that they're not riddled with spelling mistakes or grammatical issues, or that they're actual issues. So, because we're
Yep.
all human, sometimes we misinterpret things or are just in a hurry and just mistype things, and so he goes through and ensures that these are ready for the developer to look at, so that there are extra eyes in between the tester and the developer to make sure that uh, they can make the requisite changes to make their digital components more accessible. I do, what I was curious as to um, things that you feel would make reports very, very actionable and easy for developers to read. What are the reports like that you don't spend much time on and where you just send them directly to the developer? What are some common patterns there for success?
So the first thing is how quickly can I understand what the issue is that the tester has written up?
Hmm.
If I can, because as you know, we have a lot of fields that need to be filled in with all that information. And if I can figure out what the issue is within a matter of 15, 20 seconds at the most, I know pretty much that that's going to be a pretty good report. That means that the title of the issue is clear and explains exactly what I should be expecting to read in the actual write up. The details are straight to the point. I don't have to surf through 2 paragraphs of information to figure out exactly what is the issue. Um, the issue basically is the write up is basically just for one issue in particular. They have not combined 2 or 3 sort of maybe related but not really related issues together. It's just one actionable thing that a developer can do to fix this issue. Uh, the WCAG success criterion is correct. That's lots of times, I testers maybe get a little overeager and they sometimes, think that things are WCAG violations when they're not, and so, you know, uh, that's something that, when the WCAG success criterion is correct, then I'm pretty confident that the tester understands the issue and has written it up properly. Uh, and then a bonus would be, if they have put in a recommendation in there for how to remediate the issue. Now, we don't, we have testers of various levels. Some are new apprentices that are just getting started on their career, and we don't necessarily expect them to be able to, write code as to how to fix something. And then we have testers who have been here for quite a while where we would expect a little, through experience and just general increase an increase of their accessibility knowledge over the years, we would expect them to be able to write more recommendations. And so that every time I have to go in and write a recommendation, that just takes a little bit longer for me. So if a tester can do that, that makes my job even easier. So
Hmm.
those are the main things
Absolutely.
that make a really good issue. Um, I hope I answered your question there.
No, you did. I
No,
wanted
that
to
was
kind of just
excellent.
Yeah, I just wanted to drill down a little bit more about your
Sure.
recommendation. When you say recommendation, you know, what's your idea of a good recommendation? Do you want things like, hey, in order to fix this button, give it a label of such and such, or do developers, since you have a background in web development, do you guys like actual code snippets? This is the current code snippet. If you add this to this code snippet, it'll fix it, etc. What's your personal opinion on that?
So first of all, I'll say that I started out assuming that because usually you're going to have, developers looking at these issues to fix things. Not always, it depends on the issue, but I always started out assuming that, hey, I'm kind of telling a fellow developer how to do things. I don't need to hold their hand. I don't need to give them a step-by-step instructions of how to do things. Unfortunately, I've changed my opinion of that a little over the years. And now I do get a little more in detail. I don't make those assumptions necessarily anymore, unless this is a client we've been working with for a long time, and I am confident that they will understand. I do not need to spell it out for them because I'm confident in their abilities. But for a lot of clients, yes, I do spell it out, as, you know, uh, you know, like you said, um, this button needs an accessible name. So I will say, here's how you add an accessible name to the button, and here's what I recommend it might be. If
Mhm.
I have a good recommendation for it. So it can get,
Gotcha.
I may not write out the HTML code, opening button tag and then closing,
Hmm.
I may just tell them you need to add text between the opening and closing button tags, or if they're using an icon instead, I may tell them, well, one way you can do this is use ARIA label attribute on the button to give it an accessible
Gotcha.
name, things like that.
Mhm.
So I may
Yep.
not give them
Gotcha.
an actual code snippet, but I will give them enough information so they should be able to do what they need to do to fix that problem.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Hey, Bruce, you have uh certifications in this field, and our students, they get the CAT certification that we do, and they also get trusted tester. But as far as I know, you have a different one. Do you want to tell us what that is and whether or not you recommend that?
Yeah, I have the Web Accessibility Specialist certification from the IAAP, the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. I know they also offer another one, CPAC, CPACC, I believe. I can't remember what that acronym stands for. I do not have that one. I just have the WAS, or WAS as we refer to it. That one is tailored more to a technical background for people who actually remediate code, so have a lot of web development experience. And at my previous job, that's all I did uh, is application development and things like that. And so I had a lot of experience with web development and accessibility. As I mentioned earlier, I started specializing in accessibility the last 4 or 5 years I was there. The WAS isn't as easy to take. You have to, don't quote me on this. Sherry, as I think you've interviewed before, Sherry
Hmm.
has a much more in-depth knowledge about these exams, but I believe, at least when I took it, you had to prove that you had at least 3 years of direct remediating accessibility issues, code issue,
Yes, that sounds
in
about
web
right.
development. So you had to
Hmm.
have
Yeah.
you know, you had to have actual experience doing accessibility work in web development, at least three
Hmm.
years.
Hmm.
And I think that was the primary one. That would be the big blocker for a lot of people, right? If you
Yes.
don't have that
Yep.
that that prior work experience. But
Absolutely.
you need that even just to be able to be considered to be able to take the test. And so because I had well more than that, I was able to take the test. I did pass it on the first try. Sorry, backhand
Look at
compliment
you.
there.
What a star.
And then I just renewed it last year, so I've had it
Hmm.
for I've had it for just over 4 years now.
Okay.
Would I
Wow.
recommend? Would I recommend somebody get it? Um, you know, there's lots of people in the accessibility community have different views on these things. Some people think that these um, certifications maybe are a little exclusionary because they're not cheap. Um, and they test, they can't test everything, so they don't take into account your whole background in accessibility, right? So I will say that just because you have one of these certifications does not automatically make you a web accessibility expert. In fact, I would not
Mhm.
call myself a web accessibility expert by any means. I still learn new things all the time. I
Mm.
would say I have maybe an advanced understanding of many parts of accessibility, but not all of them. But it, I think a certification definitely can't hurt you it forced me to study, it forced me to really get an in-depth knowledge of WCAG in particular, but also just best practices about um, how things should behave on the web, best coding practices, things like that. So it forced me to increase my knowledge even more. That was the most
Mhm.
valuable thing I got out of it. It's nice to be able to say you have that, if you were looking for a job, I'm not, but if I was, I think it wouldn't hurt me to have that on there. Um, but
For sure.
the main thing for my certification is that you have to have that 3 years of experience actually, directly remediating accessibility issues. That's going to be the toughest one. But the
For
but the
sure.
CPAC,
So
this the CPAC is not quite as rigorous in its requirements, and so that one, I think, all our testers uh, could easily apply for and take and pass. And yeah, I would, like I said, it encourages you to really study. And so that's what I got out of it the most. And so I think it would be great for the testers to do that as well.
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
a good thing to have on your resume. Now, what are your go-to resources for increasing your accessibility knowledge, for networking with people in this community and being able to feed off of the knowledge and experiences they have?
That's a great question because that to me is one of the toughest things about getting into accessibility. I'm trying to think back to when I first started, and things are definitely better now, but I felt when I first started getting into accessibility that I didn't know where to go. I mean,
Mhm.
there was like no one place really, as far as I could tell. Information was all over the place. And then, I learned, well, you have the W3C and you have the WCAG, you have WCAG and the understanding documents and things like that. But still, WCAG is not easy. Reading through those
No,
documents and, lots of nuance, lots of gray areas there. So, that I wish that there was some sort of cat program for me when I first started. Now there may have been, and I just didn't know about it. But I kind of feel like there probably wasn't because I started like 8 or 9 years ago. It was more, just study on your own and try to find, resources that you can find. Like I didn't but to answer your question, one of the main resources I go to is the A11Y Slack. And I didn't even know that existed till like 4 or 5 years ago. So, for the first 4 or 5 years I was in accessibility, I didn't even have that resource. I was just depending on people that I worked with who, who I thought knew more about accessibility than I did, and I learned from them. And then later I realized that they did know some things, and maybe they didn't know some things quite as well as they thought they did. So, um, but the A11Y Slack is definitely probably my number one resource just because it's been around so long and it's
Mhm.
searchable, and you have all of these people on there who actively participate. You know, a lot of the a lot of people on there who have been in the accessibility business way more than me, and well known. They actively participate. I've had, they've answered my questions in the past. I know we've had other testers for accessibility officer who have asked questions in there and gotten their questions answered. So it's
Mm.
just a tremendous resource. If you like Slack, that's my first one. Of course, the understanding documents are a close second. Whenever I have a question about something, I always go through and reread the understanding document, and any techniques documents as well, just to make sure I'm remember exactly what those things said. Because if you only, some of those success criterion you don't run into all the time, and then all of a sudden you run into it, you're like, and you can't remember because it's been a while since you reviewed the understanding document. So the understanding documents you have to know inside and out. That is definitely one of my big resources. The WCAG GitHub repo is another resource that I use. That
Mhm.
is where the understanding documents are stored and where the magic happens. They discuss issues in there, and so you can search through that as well. That is, lots of times you can find a little side discussion about something you're looking for. It's work. It's not easy. But if you're the type of person who enjoys a challenge, enjoys a puzzle, and enjoys researching it and trying to figure it out, then those types of resources will be really helpful for you.
Yeah, that's what I
Awesome.
love about digital accessibility testing is it feels like a scavenger hunt. And a scavenger hunt that's going to benefit not only the people that you're working for, but the people who are going to visit that website in the future.
Yeah, it's like
That's
a
a great way to put it. I will say,
fun little
you
game.
know, I think one of the best traits you can have, not just in accessibility, but in probably a lot of areas. But what I always felt is um, having a sense of curiosity. Like you're not satisfied with just somebody telling you something. You want to make sure you understand it completely. You want to know why they told you this is the way it is, right? When I tell a tester, when they ask me a question like, "Hey, is this a violation or not?" and I say no, and I usually explain it a little, but I want a tester who's like, does Bruce really know what he's talking about? You know what?
Hmm.
I'm going to just do a little more research on my own because, I am always happy for testers to challenge me and come back and say, "Hey, I found this, are you sure it's not, that's great because, we all, that helps both of us learn. We learn
Yeah.
from our mistakes. And I am more than willing to admit that I'm going to make mistakes every once in a while. So I love being challenged on these things and I love having discussions about these things. So
Yep.
if you're somebody who likes uh, puzzles, likes a challenge, likes to go out and find information on your own because you're curious about how things work or why they're supposed to work the way they are, then I think you're going to make a really good accessibility tester or as you move up through the profession, anything else you might decide to do.
Absolutely. Well,
Yep.
Bruce, thank you so much for your time. We just so appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us. For those of you who don't know, Bruce builds a lot of the websites that we curated for our cat testers to test. He does that web development. He's not giving himself more credit. He's a genius. If I ever have questions, I go to Bruce because I'm like, hey Bruce, I'm running into this. What do you think about that? He's Ellie and
Yep.
my go-to. So Bruce says Slack for his number one option. I say Bruce is my number one option.
Yep. Just a
I
really
pr
good mentor all around. And like,
Hmm.
honestly, so humble and very much gives us good advice that we carry as instructors because
Hmm.
we have been wrong before. We have given the wrong information to students before and had to come back and correct ourselves. And if you are never like if you think you're done learning, you're going to not be a good mentor or a good instructor. You have to be
Yeah,
humble enough to realize that you might be thinking about something the completely wrong way.
absolutely.
That's a
So to
great
all of
that's a great way to put it, Ellie. And I just want to say to you and B, I think you two have just been outstanding in constantly improving the CAP program. I love all the changes you've made. I super enjoy working with you. You two are great examples of what the CAP program can do if you have the drive and the initiative to take advantage of what it offers you. And both of you have done that. You're outstanding.
Thanks, Bruce.
Aw,
Your payment will
thank you,
be
Bruce.
in the mail soon.
I don't have Venmo or anything like that, B. So
Yeah, I'll send a
yeah,
paper
no,
check.
there's
There you go. I'll send you a
And
check in Braille.
you do all this and you find time to foster kittens. Like you have gotten me into wanting to foster kittens. And it's such a big need in the community. And the fact that you have the time to do all this testing management stuff and then especially some of those younger ones that don't have moms and require like 24-hour care. That's
Hmm.
just amazing to
yeah.
me.
Yep.
I got lucky on this one. I have the mom, and if
Yeah.
they were older, I might have even had one in here to put up on the video. But they're just a little too. Like I said, they're going to be a
Yeah.
week old tomorrow, so they're just a little
Oh.
too young
Yeah.
right now. But
Eyes aren't even open yet,
interview
right?
me again in
Hmm.
about 6 to 8 weeks, and
There
we
you
can
go.
talk more kittens.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you are a listener and you are curious, we do hold the CAP program. It's an 18-week program to teach you how to leverage your critical thinking skills, your skills with your assistive technology in order to become an accessibility tester. We are just very, very appreciative for all the likes, shares, downloads. Please continue to do so. Please continue to share our podcast with others who may be interested, who are curious about what it's like to hear from two people in the digital accessibility space, Ellie and I, so that you guys can get the tea as we spill it about what's going on. Ellie, do you want to close us out with a little bit of Ellie advice?
Yeah. Always take advantage of the people in a good way in your corner. I need to start this over. That does not sound good. Let me
No,
start
I
that over.
like it. I mean, keep going. Keep going. It's fine.
It sounds bad. I always see the advantages of the people that you have on your team who have years of experience, who have lots of knowledge to share. Always be willing to pick their brains and get get a grasp on the knowledge that they have to share, because people like Bruce are truly invaluable. They can add so much value to your work through sharing that knowledge with you. So always, always recognize when you have a legend among you, and take advantage
I'm
of that.
rolling my eyes right now, Ellie.
All right. Thank you so much, listeners. We so appreciate you guys and hope you tune in next time for our next episode. Thanks. Spill the tea on digital accessibility.
Subscribe to the WCAT WeCat podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Links below.